The next thing on our list here is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So Hypertext Transfer Protocol is an application protocol that defines a language for clients and servers to speak to each other. This is the language used to order goods. So think of it like this. You were at home, you wanted to go to a shop. First of all, there had to be a road. Once there's a road between your home and the shop. So next of all, after you've established that there's a road, you have to know how you are going to get there. Are you walking there using a car, using a bike? Then next of all, you have to know the address of the shop, because where are you driving to if you don't know where you are going? So you get the address. Then you also need to know when you get to the shop, how are you going to communicate? Let's say you are taking now, you're taking to China, for example, and you need to get something from the store. How do you communicate with the salesperson if you don't speak Chinese, you don't speak Mandarin? So that is what HTTP is. It specifies the language for the client and the servers to be able to communicate with each other. Because without communication, of course, you cannot get anything from each other. Hypertext Transfer Protocol is just the protocol that defines how they talk, how they communicate, how they speak to each other, basically. Then we have one more thing we need to understand before we get how the web works completely. We have component files. Now, a website is made up of different files, which are different parts of the goods you buy from the shop. These files come in two main types. We have code files and we have asset files. So first of all, when we talk about component files, a website is made up of many different files, which are different parts of the goods you buy from the shop. These come in two main types. Code files. Code files consist of the code you use to develop their websites, which is mainly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Almost every website is made up of this, right? Then we have assets. This is a collective name for all the other items that make up a website, such as images, music, video, Word documents, and PDF. So the code files are basically, let me show you an example to understand this more effectively. So let's go back to South Africa. Great. Let's wait for it to load. Great. So let's check the code files. Great. So this is what the code file looks like. As you can see here, there's just a lot of plenty things that you may not understand, right? But this is what the code file looks like. In here, I can see JavaScript, there's the HTML, and there's the styling tool, the CSS. So that's basically, this is the code file. This is what it looks like. You might say, wow, this is a lot. But this is what the code file looks like, right? And you can see the code file goes up to like, let me see. We have up to 2,483 lines of code, right? And if you check the website, just few pages, honestly, just scroll down once, twice, they have gotten to the end. It's not half as long. So that's what make up the code files. Then when we talk about assets, these are the assets. See this video here. This is an asset. There's another video here. This is an asset. This is an asset. All the text, the Digital Empowerment Academy, this is an asset. This line here, this is an asset. You get? So these are all what this image here, this is an asset. So when we say code files and assets, we all have an understanding of what they are. And they are all under the broad umbrella called component files. So now let's break it down into a sequential step. What happens when you type a web address into your browser? So let's say go to our browser now, we type google.com. What happens when I click on enter? What happens when this Google is loading and loading and loading before it displays? So this is what we're about to find out. Number one, the browser goes to the DNS server and finds the real address of the server that the website lives on. So the browser goes to the DNS server and like, okay, this is the address book. The browser goes and checks the address book and finds the real address. Okay, this is the real address for where the website is. And it goes to the address. Secondly, the browser sends an HTTP request message to the server, asking it to send a copy of the website to the client. This message and all other data sent between the client and the server is sent across your internet connection using TCP/IP. So the browser sends a HTTP request message asking the server, please send a copy of the website to this client. And all this and all the data sent between the client and the server is sent across the internet connection, which is the road, using TCP/IP, which is the transport mechanism. If the server approves the client's request, because the server can decline the client request, the server sends the client a 200 OK message. What this means is, of course, you can look at the website, here it is, and then start sending the website files to the browser as a series of small chunks called data packets. So the website, if it approves, it starts sending the website in a series of small chunks called data packets. That's why sometimes when you open a website or an app, you see text to load, the images not load, or links to load, text to not load, like that, because everything is coming in small data packets. Then the browser assembles the small chunks into a complete website and displays it. That's basically what happens. In between you clicking enter after typing a domain name and the page being displayed, in a matter of seconds, that's all what goes on behind the scenes. Now that we know what really happens, okay, there's more explanation here. It says, real web addresses are only memorable strings you type into your address bar to find your favorite websites. There are special numbers that look like this, right? This is called an IP address and it represents a unique location on the web. However, it's not very easy to remember. That's why domain name servers were invented. These are special servers that match up a website you type into your browser, like mozilla.org, to the website's real IP address. Websites can be reached directly via the IP address. You can find the IP address of websites of a website by typing its domain into a tool like an IP checker. So let me break this down, right? First of all, when the internet was created, it was basically a means for the military to communicate, and then it was a means for a few universities to communicate with each other, to share their academic work with each other. They didn't need names to send all those things. They used addresses, they used IP addresses, because it was just a few. Of course, you can easily just write it down or remember it. But as the internet began to grow and it became bigger and bigger, and now we have millions of computers connected to the internet at the same time, it became impossible to keep using IP addresses, because of course human beings, we cannot remember that, and it's tedious to even try and store all of them down, right? They came up with a solution. Let's create an address book that has all the addresses, but let's give all the addresses a name, so that whenever a user types the name, the browser can then go to that address book, which is the domain name server, gets the real address, which is a series of numbers and full stops or symbols, depending. Then the browser can then go to the real address. That way, the user does not have to be remembering clunky numbers. The websites are easily differentiated by their names instead of numbers, and is a win-win for everybody. So perfect. That's what brought about the domain name server. So the real address of every website is an IP address. It's a unique location on the web, on the internet. Every website has an IP address. All right? So that's how it works. So let's go ahead and just do like a test to see what this really means. Let me let's use an IP address checker. Close this. DNS checker.org. just say you want to check. Okay. Let me just type in Google. Okay, let me type the full https://www.google.com, and we look this up. Perfect. So we can see the name here. Type a domain name Google. Then you see the address. See the real address here. This is the IP address. So let's just click on this link so we'll get a more detailed view. You even see the location of where this IP address is stored, where the server is. That's how crazy it is. So if you scroll down, great, you see the country down here. United States of America, New York City, latitude, longitude, blah, blah, blah. So this is the IP address. This 142.250.70.100. So let me just copy it down. But you can see this is literally even a map of where this server is stored and where we are loading Google from. So let me quickly just show you that we can access Google through the IP address. All it takes is for you to type it in http:// paste it, enter. See? And it had brought us to Google. Still loading. Great. So you see, we did not even have to type google.com. All we used was the IP address. Right? So this is how IP addresses work. These are IP addresses work. The only reason why we have domain name now is because we can't be remembering IP addresses, and it's easier to work with names. Generally, as human, we find it easier to remember names than number. If you meet someone and you ask them for their name and their number, chances are the next time you meet them, you remember their name, not the number. So yeah, that's how DNS works and the IP addresses. So one more thing we need to understand before we go into the main thing is packets. Earlier we used the term packets to describe the format in which the data is sent from server to client. Basically, when data is sent across the web, it is sent as thousands of small chunks so that many different web users can download the same website at the same time. If websites were sent as single big chunks, only one user could download one at a time, which obviously would make the web very inefficient and not much fun to use. What this is basically saying is that websites are sent in small chunks, not one single large chunk. It is broken down to thousands of pieces and sent, right? So think of it like this. You want to send an application that's like 50 gig to a hard drive. It's going to take hours, if not days, depending on the computer you're using. So instead of doing this for every website, imagine 500,000 people are trying to access Twitter at the same time, and they're trying to send Twitter that is worth like thousands of gigs or terabytes to everybody one at a time. That's very inefficient. It will take days before anyone can access the site. So instead, what they do is that they break it down into tiny chunks, then send it to everyone at the same time. That way it's faster and more efficient. Everyone can access it at the same time. You don't have to wait for one person to finish, then it is your turn, then it is your turn. No, that's just very inefficient and clunky. So that's why it is sent as packets, small chunks, or data packets. So yeah, that's basically all that pertains to how the web works, what goes on behind the scenes. I hope that we've all followed along, that we've understood. Feel free to ask questions if you do not understand. I'm always here to respond. In our next class, we'll be looking into HTML. So like we said earlier, most web pages are made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So from our next class, we'll be talking about HTML, what it is, how to use it, what it does. So see you all in the next class. I will expect that before then, we'll all go and at least try and read up on it or watch a video, see what it's about. so that we can just flow along. Thank you very much. See you all in the next class.